Heiser here starts discussing Ezekiel's wheel, and he starts off by trying in his refutation, like he does, by saying that everyone knows that this is just a throne sitting there with wheels up under it. But yeah, and he goes on to say that people have been thinking about this for thousands of years, and so for ancient aliens to come along now and say blah blah blah. Well, listen, Heiser, brand new technology that we have now brings light to what these things might be. 50, 60, 80 years ago, if somebody saw a UFO, they wouldn't have had the same vernacular that they have today onto it due to our modern society. And modern society theologians, lots of them are looking at this information in a whole different light, and he knows it quite well. In fact, it's what he's refuting. So to come off and say everybody knows starts off on the wrong foot for the first place, Mr. Heiser. But then also, you're describing something that really is something that's found in a wheel, and that wheel is actually just the zodiac and 4 points of it, as the scorpion used to be an eagle, and so on. And so he's seeing God's will and the angel and the way it changes and the way it moves, and that's what it's about. But I'm not refuting what it's about, and I'm refuting what he's saying and the way in the direction that he's taking, like he does towards others. What does he say here? He says,
that have four faces and several wings. There are also
so
two wheels next to the angels.
he's going to refute
Everyone in
this.
the field knows what this is in Ezekiel 1. It's a cherubim throne because we have very clear examples of the actual elements that you find in Ezekiel 1.
It's not.
Well, it's not that clear what this is, or people wouldn't look at it so much. I mean, you think you have a clear vision of it, but now other people are coming and looking at it. You want to sit and stay looking at it. You're still looking at a 1957 Chevy and saying, this is car, this is car. Other people have different ideas on what car looks like now. Then he goes on to attack this situation where the NASA scientist who studied this came up with this idea supposedly, and they even show a video now that they've made up off computer diagrams and everything. And I disagree with this too whenever I read it. I don't see it to be such a big teardrop shaped thing that really has this big teardrop to it. The thing that I have in my thing looks more like a flattened craft, like the craft that looks like in Lost in Space. But now there's a bubble on top of this thing, and inside the bubble you can easily see the rider sitting there on the captain's chair. It's mentioned 2 or 3 times in the Bible where there's this captain's chair. One time there's a lady upon this seat. You can see her through the crystal window, but they can't describe a window. There's no glass back then where they describe windows with glass and everything, so we have a hard time describing this thing. But the first thing that he wants to attack is these legs here, where he says, how the hell can you get that out of it? Well, you get the idea that it looks like a man because it's shape. And if you were to just somehow put a couple of little arms out on this thing, then it really would look like a man shape. There's legs and a trunk and a body and a head part thing. But hey, what they're also missing right here on this is, let's just say that they were to draw on this face right here a man's face, and poking out this way was going to be an eagle's face, and on poking out this way it's going to be a lion's face. If they had that on each four of these, now you'd have to start shutting up, wouldn't you? See what he says about it.
Contraption from what Ezekiel describes.
Bloomrich's book and other books, other items penned by ancient astronaut theorists, again, all have the same weakness. They tend to ignore the vocabulary of Ezekiel chapter 1. For instance, again, the throne upon which Yahweh seats is never described as round or silvery or some sort of disc shaped. That just has to be assumed and brought into the text. So they either do that, or they modernize the descriptions that are there. For instance, the bovine with the calf legs must surely be legs of a UFO or some other aircraft, landing pod sorts of things.
Let me read it as.
So now he's got that idea he throws in there too. And I get his understanding on it. I do, but it's a throne with a platform type thing. I imagine that this platform is actually a movable UFO because apparently it can take him flying around through the clouds, up into space, down to Earth. Okay, so let's say that this platform here is some type of UFO thing, and that there's a bubble over him on his throne, and you can see him in it. There he is, God in his glory, and his glory is a spaceship. There's this kivod, his glory, by the way, is a large mechanical machine that cannot be described well. Look up what kivod means, and you'll see that there's a description that gives you this idea of this large mechanical unknown thing that's going on. So it seems like it's way beyond their means at this point to describe the thing well, and so they do. But he goes on to say that there are no descriptions that say that God's glory ever has an appearance that would be anything that looks like a UFO, and I question that. Instantly in my mind comes up the idea of a pillar of fire and smoke and everything that follows them for 40 years. It's a cylinder, a flying cylinder that is with them in the wilderness and stuff, and that definitely has a look. There's another place in the Bible where it describes it pretty much looking like a hot dog or a cylinder that is longer than it is wide, hovering, and that surely looks like a flying pill or something like that. That had to be somewhat of a UFO, or now we would notice a UFO, but still he refutes that. I think he thinks it's a hot dog.
Logical to assume that our reading, an ancient astronaut reading of the modern mind, is getting it right when the ancient person has pretty much done all they could do to tell you what they're talking about, and then you sort of just depart from what they say. So it's very inconsistent to say that you're reading an ancient text, but then looking at what the creators of that text. It's very illogical to assume that our reading, an ancient astronaut reading of the modern mind, is getting it right when the ancient person has pretty much done all they could do to tell you what they're talking about, and then you sort of just depart from what they say. So it's very inconsistent to say that you're reading an ancient text, but then looking at what the creators of that text thought and just sort of pushing it to the side.
Well, Michael, people have been doing this for thousands of years, and Jesus was a carpenter. So there's not any new ways of doing anything. And I get your point about that. But then again, people back then didn't have any idea about the modern ideals and technology and thoughts of men. It's why you have a job. So, and now your job is just going around refuting other people who are trying to do the job that you were recently doing before. It, I'm not going to call it disgusting. I'm just going to say that it's easy to go around refuting somebody instead of doing all the actual work, isn't it? It's just off of what you know, and you start babbling off, and that's fine. But when you start saying that it's easier for somebody um, to say that the ancients were wrong and things like that. Again, 80 years ago, no one would have even questioned this type thing, but now they do. And this depiction right here of God sitting up on his chariot, and it came down and it sat on four legs. And if, let's say, those end pods on the end had a little bit of a hoof type look to them, and out that door right there walks four creatures, and these four creatures had four heads on them facing four different ways, and they all hovered around, and when they do it in unison, like they all do it, and if one moves, the other moves. It's like zun, 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 zun. That's what it sounds like that he's telling you goes on, and that fits this depiction a whole lot more than some dude sitting up on a chariot, type of thing. Well, back then, that's all they had was chariots and maybe some examples of wheels. That was the biggest technology of the day. And so they're trying to describe it in that way. But this would more fit the depiction that we would think of today as doing it. No, it didn't say it was a golden thin disc or anything else, but it said his throne sat upon this thing, and it was holy, and it was shiny, and all these type of things, and radiated colors, and out of the midst of it, out of the middle came these four creatures that had four heads like a lion, but maybe that's really just something that's more like a, a wheel-looking device that they have come out, and this four heads of a lion and a eagle and all that maybe described that it looked like it was fierce, but it also looked like it was flying, and they were flying around and zing, 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 zing. I'm I'm not sure. And one thing's for sure, Mr. Heiser, you're not sure either. You have a great idea. Other people have other ideas. I know it's your job to sit and refute things, but the way that you go about doing it, it just seems, I'm not going to say it.
The Bible that describe God's throne.
Yep, there is a lot of places that describes God's throne, and if you'd open your eyes instead of keeping them closed right now, you might realize that one of them describes a cylinder, the other one describes a pill-looking shape that's floating along. You know, God's glory. Oh, by the way, this word ruach. Look the thing up. If you looked it up in phonetic words, right now do this because it's already been known by other people what these symbols were back whenever it was symbols before it was ancient Hebrew scratch. Look at RU space A. Put this in Google in images. RU space A. Ru space A. Ru-ah. And then ka is going to be psh and putting sparks out at one direction. And if you stack these things up, it looks like a spaceship hovering above the waters. God's ruach is described as being something that hovers like a bird without having to flap its wings. It causes a great stirring, like whenever a bird flies up and kicks up the wind. This is God's ruach. This is the glory of God. Whenever it tells you that the spirit of the God came across the waters, they use this word, this ruach. So all through the Bible, there's these things that really have some type of connotation to look like a UFO. The description of him landing on top of the mountain with the lightning and fire and everything else. I mean, short of them describing a golden or silver oblate craft, that's a UFO sighting. If somebody had a video of that going on right now, someone would say it was a UFO sighting, Mr. Heiser. If someone was to describe right now a giant pillar of fire that floated along looking like a pillar of smoke, and at nighttime it looked like a pillar of fire, and it was a long cylinder right now, and I filmed the thing, the place that would be looking at it is UFO files. If it got on the news, they would say, look, here's video of a UFO. Open your eyes. He still won't open his eyes. If I took the even description that you're giving right now with the four wheels and the rims and flew around and they came out and flew around in unison, if I filmed that from a distance, that would be on UFO and Ancient Aliens next week. Mr. Heiser, open your eyes.
He's seated upon a throne, and it's called a throne. The word for throne actually appears in the passage. And the issue there is, since we know it's a throne because Daniel calls it a throne, it's really important to observe how the throne is described. It has wheels. It has fiery, fire about it, fiery description of wheels. Scholars have known for a long time that.
Yeah, we've known for a long time, Heiser. We've also known for a long time that, I don't know, Captain Kirk's chair could be considered to be a throne. And if you had a window on the craft and you could see him in there sitting on that throne, then he would be sitting in there on a platform, on a throne, protected. And if four angels came out and they were on fire and stood around, or if he came and landed and his landing thrust was to catch things on fire around it, that just starts to sound real UFO-ish. You did open your eyes, right? Well, no, it looks like they're kind of half open. You're kind of seepies.
Satanic God, you moron. What a bunch of clowns you are. You go worship Yahweh, asshole.
Okay, let's look at some other things that we have in Michael S. Heiser's work here. Just to see, I mean, he's a great guy and has really done a lot of studying, and he's so caught up in his debunking everybody and calling out and making his own little, trying to quote words like paleobabble and things like that, that he doesn't actually research it good enough to find out the real truth. I mean, it happens to me too. I go looking up something and it tells me that the sun's only 700,000 miles away, and then I'm like, wow, and this is one of these fucking flat earth people. Well, okay. And I'm not saying he's a flat earther. I'm just telling you that you get weird numbers from weird people, and sometimes you don't want to spit that out. Clearly, I'm re-going through all of our stuff, and I don't agree with everything Sitchin says, but I'm not going to, go around and just disrespect the man totally. But there's a lot of things about his Nibiru story that really aren't quite there for me. Of course, I haven't looked at all these tablets, and again, I don't know if Michael S. Heiser has looked at all these tablets. Clearly, he's probably done something like look through the Harvard or Oxford files, and the OTC thing, and seen what he could find. But he likes to refer to that as paleobabble. One of his things is transporting the trilithon stones of Baalbek, and it's about applied physics, not about ancient aliens. So let's look at his. He starts to assert that, paleobabble readers know that ancient astronaut theorists suffer from a fixation on megalithic construction. Sure we do. The impossibility of moving stones of a great size and tremendous weight appears to them as proof of alien assistance. Well, it does show something weird, doesn't it? I mean, to you too, doesn't it? Doesn't it show you something weird that they went to the end of the envelope of what men could do and that early in time? And now we're having trouble building machines that could even pick up that kind of weight and do things with it. But yet they seem to be able to do it. And these are ancients. So that puts a flip-flop on what you would think things were people were capable of doing, Michael Heiser. And that's what everybody's pointing out. But let's continue here. This argument, of course, is simply reduced to the since I can't figure out how it was done, it must have been aliens. Yeah, kind of like the ancient aliens dude with the big hair, where he's like, anything that pops up, he goes, was it aliens? And the answer is yes. Well, it could be aliens, Here's the thing that he wants to discount, though, is that it can't be aliens. Well, actually, it could be aliens. I mean, it could be, right? Right. If they came down in a spaceship and go, yeah, we did this crap, and this Heiser guy over here's wrong, it'd really make you embarrassed, wouldn't it, Heiser? Anyhow, it lets, or if they just flew down and said, we tried to get them to do it, but they couldn't lift these and get them all the way up here. So we found our limits as a human being and what wood would be able to hold until they make like iron structures and stuff that are good enough. And we might be able to do that today, but we sure as hell couldn't do it back then, but they pushed their limits. And how did they push their limits so early, Mr. Heiser? And this is the baffling question that pulls people into this. You can base it on the fact of how much each ox can drag, but there's a horsepower ratio situation going on, and just like the Egyptians learned on how they were going to pull those big statues, that doesn't work out just A, B, and C, does it? No, Mr. Heiser, it doesn't. But I think the wood ring around that with the amount of weight on it would just crush. I think it would just turn to dust as it was trying to go around and around and around. Now, one thing that nobody ever really says in here is that instead of having the two rings on it, you could put ring, 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 ring all the way down it, and that would help you to hold a lot of the weight. And I could see how you might be able to do it that way and get that thing there somehow if you had 80,000 ox or whatever during the. Yeah, this just sounds feasible. Why wouldn't they cut that thing up in 6 pieces and then just have a few guys carry it over there? Why would they do something to this difficulty too? This is another reason why people look at this weird, is that they didn't do it the easy way. They did it the hardest way possible with the most heaviest weight that even people to this day are looking at like, what the hell are these people doing? And Heiser, you see this. What the hell are these people doing with this big old stone when they could have done 6 smaller ones all the way around the perimeter of it? Now, there's a lot of smaller stones here. Why didn't they do that? And they did something kind of to show man. And it was there way before the Romans got here. Who did this? And how incredible was it that somebody back then with the technology that was really kind of foolish and a bunch of little devil worshipping, blood drinking dudes could pull this crap off? Where it comes off, though, as being a little bit off, it tells you that 1,250,000 kilograms is the weight of the great block of granite that the Empress Catherine II of Russia from 1762 to 1796, carried to St. Petersburg, now in Leningrad, to serve as a colossal base to the equestrian statue of Peter the Great. Largest stone ever moved by a man, 1.5 times the weight of the trilithon box at Baalbek. Yeah, somebody said that, but that wasn't true. I mean, if you just look at the thing. an object 1.5 times the weight of the trilithon was successfully moved in the 18th century all the way from where the hell it was with no modern cranes to all the way there. Well, that'd be pretty impressive. In fact, even something half that size or half the size of Baalbek moving as far as they did would probably be pretty impressive. But you're saying it's 1.5 times or more the object. So let's take a look at this. So we look at the statue of Peter the Great, and no. I mean, I just looked at a picture where the people were standing on that big block. And you can even compare it to this thing here, how, right in here, how it's gouged out and lost a lot of weight and a lot of rock work. But if you said this is one end of it, and then it ran down sitting at an angle like that, back towards the back, this thing's only half the size maybe of the other one. No, it's a little more than half the size, but not quite. But then it's not square. It doesn't appear to be quite as tall, quite as wide, or quite as long. And it's just submerged off in the dirt here, kind of, just kind of gouged down in there a little bit and shoved in. It looks like it's kind of like, but it's actually just a big hunk of rock. Now, one thing, I heard a story that that like a third of it broke off on the way here, and they carried it separately, and that made it a lot easier for them. And you can see this front part here is all cracked off. See that little crack running right through there? Well, that crack could be where it came apart into pieces, and of course taking that tonnage off the front of it would be a whole lot more. It'd kind of square it off a little bit more too and give us a better representation of being equal to it. But no, that's not near as big. Not near as big. Let's measure this thing. One curious thing is that the way that scallop has been cut out of this, it almost looks like I don't know, ropes were run around that thing right there or something to be able to try to pull it, or I'm not sure how they got exactly that part there, but looking at the measurements of this thing, it's some 32 to 34 foot long if you count the point to point farthest points, and about 12 foot tall. The trilithons are 70 foot long and 14 foot tall and square. So they're much bigger than this. In fact, you'd almost say the exact opposite. You'd say that the Baalbek stone is 1.5 times as big as this. And we're talking about the one sitting out there in the quarry that's so big you see people standing on and all that. And then there's one even bigger over in the quarry right next to that over there. Of course, they're quarried, not moved. Well, that one is. It's not where it was quarried at. The other one's still sitting in its quarry marks. Makes you wonder what kind of happened right whenever all this did. They were doing something, and then it all just kind of stopped. And then those people weren't there anymore, And then the Romans, yeah, probably so. But yeah, this is nowhere near the size. Let's look down on it in Google Earth and see what it does. Okay, we stretch out here, and we're going from the very front point of it and pulling back. And I know you see that dark blur that's right there, but, literally, this dark blur that's right here behind it, that's just a shadow. Sun's coming from way over here. This thing ends right here. So you can see how the length of line that I have right there is 70 foot. It's about twice the size of the other one. It really is. Yeah, it's got to be twice that size. It's 70 foot, and the other one is somewhere around 30. Let's measure it and see where that is. And it looks like if you really go from the crest that's back here on the back part of it, whenever you look at it from 360, there's a crest area from here to the front edge on the ground, digging into the ground. All you really get is about 28.5 foot, 28.6 foot versus 70. 28 versus 70. Wow, that's almost a third, So we're looking at a ratio, Mr. Heiser, that goes completely backwards the other way. If you took all the concrete on the ground right here and added it all up with a rock and made it into a cube, I still think you're short. So, yeah, kind of disappointed in the amount of research that was done on this right here to be able to debunk him back. I mean, all it is like you can wiki the crap and get it better than that. So he's got his paleobabble site and everything, and he wants to show that. Funny thing is it shows the 3 pyramids, and then there's a UFO, And of course, he's probably taking somebody else's UFO photograph and gone, ha, or some crap, who knows what he's trying to say with that. But your antidote to cyber twaddle and misguided research about the ancient world. And misguided research is probably a key right there. You're so blinded by your everything's got to be true in the God Bible thing that it kind of taints your research sometimes, sir. Or that if you find the answer and it sounds like it goes with you, then you're going to go with it. And it's funny because that's kind of the thing that you said that drove people that are ancient alien theorists, that they would, anytime they find something close, they go, ah, and it looks like all you did was find something close and went, aha, aha, but you didn't look into it enough to find out that, aha, ho, ho. And then whenever you realize that actually how much bigger that stone is than that, then you probably have a big steaming cup of shut the fuck up. I know it looks like this place has been destroyed and then rebuilt before. Clearly you can tell that this is not even good Roman construction here that the people are doing. And they've even used some of these circular spires. See the 3 dots in the tail ends. These are part of the columns that they're setting up here just for somewhat fortification. But this was done, thousands of years after the thing was built in the first place, or at least 1,000 years after they were built in the first place, trying to use this as some type of fortification. But these are the 3 stones in question. And you can see how they're on top of these other stones that are down here and resting on top of them, and how they're really sealed tight together. And I don't know if you can see it, but those are 2 people standing there. That's 2 people standing there. Those black dots. That's how huge these stones are compared to that Tsar of Russia thing. That Tsar of Russia thing would have ended, let's say it's this stone right here. If it started here and went up and then did the little busted part and came and then it would end about right here. You would say that that back part comes up, scallops, jags, goes over, up, almost at the height, about the height I am now, 12 to 14 foot. And then it comes back jagging in, jagging like this, and then does that little skinny out of the bottom. So you're taking a chunk out here, and then you're taking the back half of this chunk out here to even be able to pull that off. So that's not going to be equal at all, Mr. Heiser. It's just not, man. And I don't know how much longer this is going to be over on your website, but yeah. Or maybe you leave it on there and you just make an apology to the people that you had some misinformation. It would look more scholarly. This is the Great Pyramid Complex at Giza. And if you run a line right through the line that shows up here, and then just stretch a line out and pull it, believe it or not, it ends up going diagonally across straight to Baalbek. And not just like offset by a little bit. Even whenever you go in, you can look at it and it just pretty much pegs that thing right to the center right there and goes right into that temple. And this marking here was used to end up making the hexagram thing. And you can see the size of the hexagram now whenever you start looking at the size of these towns and what this really entailed and how they were able to even pull that off at these ancient times, or how ancient is this? Okay, so one of the main things that I saw that Heiser had said about Sitchin's work is that he didn't think that he even knew how to, utilize the language of the Akkadians and or Sumerians. Kind of insulting. And so he said that the Anunnaki, that Sitchin had claimed that it means those from whose the heavens came down to earth, or those from the heavens to earth came. Okay? And he says that's not even close or whatever, and that the man's silly, doesn't know what he's talking about. Okay, Heizer, so let's see here. I just put in Na means in Sumerian. Now I was going to look up on and Nu and Na and everything, but we don't even have to go there. It's just this simple. The Anunnaki take their name from a Sumerian god of the sky. It's not actually true. You know that there's Enlil, right? Enlil's the god of the sky. An is the god of heaven, right? And he's the heavens, and Ki is the earth, and there was Tiamat, and the whole thing. And Marduk, I'm sure you're familiar with this. I don't have to go through with this. Heiser should know what I'm talking about if you're hopefully ever one day watching this. And then I'd like a response perhaps down there in the bottom. But anyhow, he's the Sumerian god of the heavens. The name is variously written Anuna, Anunnaki, or Anuna, meaning princely offspring or offspring of An. Okay, so that makes sense. So let's look right here. Alexei Sahala, along with 3 other German guys at the Helsinki, Finland Institute, right here, and they write about the different types of derivatives of words that you get. You get type 1, type 2, type 3, type 4. So when you're using the word na and things and stuff like that, but anyhow, so she says it has a lot of different meanings. Sometimes on in the 6th variant actually means the same meaning, but also meaning heaven and sky is on. And or na, I'm sorry, na. That's what I'm looking up is the meaning of na. So na can mean heaven and sky, okay? So it can even mean that also, I guess you would say. And then there's also the effect that, let's see, the danu na is the gods as a whole or whatever. And it says the terms, particularly Anunnaki, are used in both Sumerian and Akkadian, and in fact the Hebrew root Nephilim, they talk about the Anunnaki and stuff, and I'm sure you're familiar with refuting this type of thing, but here it is again by somebody telling you that An, Anu, Anunnaki, and the offspring of An. Okay, so let's go with this simple idea here. Drop everything right now, and I know that you're very steeped in the Bible and everything, so God. Okay, God, your God may be different than mine. Mine's just the creator of all, and he's sure not the Hebrew guy, but my God would never do baby killing and shit. Anyhow, so we're just gonna say God, okay? But God, you and I are gonna agree on this real quick. Check it out. God's not from here. No, God's not from here. God made the whole cosmos and everything. Therefore, just on logistics, he can't be from here, right? So God's not from here. So God is an alien. Okay, so all right, so now we've got God as an alien. No matter what, even too, your God right now is an alien. Okay, we're cool with that. Okay, I got you. Okay, God's an alien. All right, here we go. And so he comes from heaven. Whoever these people are, they come from heaven. Outside of our realm, they're from the heavens. So when we say Anunnaki, go back up here again. So when you say Anunnaki, and An means the heavens. So what you're saying is the people that came from the heavens to Ki, that's the earth. So I'm guessing we're saying it's those people that from the heavens came to earth. What makes fucking Sitchin wrong at all? What makes that possible that he's wrong in any of that? Okay, let's just go straight forward. You know about the Anuna. They're the Anuna gods. They're not from here, they're aliens. And if the Anuna that are not from here and aliens come to Ki, earth, then the Anunnaki are going to be the people from the heavens who came to earth. Okay, so even if we look at what Na means in Akkadian, which is of course later, and these later people who took over their words and have their own little assimilations of it, but we don't need to go there. I'm sure you're familiar with this concept too. And if you look at what Na is, Na means in, into, by, on, next to, beside. The Na sign usage in the Epic of Gilgamesh, Na is used 736 times. Na is a capitalization, like in name, starting it off and everything, is used 24 times. And in those times, it means one of these words that's there. So, if that means by, beside, and that, so on, nu, na, ki, that's on, the heavens are down to the earth. I mean, there's no way you can get that it doesn't actually mean that. Those from the heavens to the earth came. So in Akkadian, na means to go forward. And more of the Hittites and their language there, but the Akkadian form of Hittite, to go forward. It generally means something like that in that meaning. And of course, you know, Anki means heaven and earth. Yep. I can show you a pretty cool thing. It's a guy singing the Epic of Gilgamesh in ancient Sumerian. And whenever he does, pay attention. Every line he ends up with Ea. So he puts Ea on the end of it. Inky, Ea. He puts at the end of each one, and then you can tell that he smiles starting at the second verse or the second chorus, because he says Anki, when the heavens and the earth are separated, and Kianti, whenever the earth was separated from the heavens, and he flips it around backwards the other way, and it gives you an example of what this might have come across like, and what maybe Abraham listened to sitting in Ur, and that gave him the whole idea for the Bible, you know, because Enkidu was seduced by the woman who took him away from a Garden of Eden, told him he would be godlike, got him away from there. The animals rejected him. He became a man, and so on. And of course, the flood story and all those things. Check this out, though, Heiser. So this is just one of a few times here that I'm going to show you that Michael S. Heiser's wrong. Thank you. Thank you very much. How about that shit? I say to you now that he's wrong, and I'm out. Thank you. How about that shit?